All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Jon Carlos Senior, and I'm an attorney, and I'm the director of UCSD Student Legal Services. We provide free, confidential counseling, education, and referrals to all currently registered UCSD students. And are these the incoming folks in the CASP program coming to UCSD for the first time ever? Yes, that's so exciting. Well, welcome. And Jessica's Jessica. Go ahead, Jessica.
So my name is Jessica Muñoz, and I used to work in student legal services with Jon Carlos. I left in 2010. Has it been 10 years? Yep. To do trial work in child welfare. So I represented children and parents in dependency proceedings. So that's the type of job where you go to court every day. And I loved it and thought I would do that for a long time, and that it would take a really special reason for me to stop doing that. And then there was a very special reason for me to stop doing that, which was to go back to UCSD and serve as the undocumented student services coordinator. So I was really privileged and proud to be part of that effort. And then now I'm the Riverside County Executive Director for Voices for Children. So we're the court-appointed special advocate program for Riverside County. And Riverside County, if you're not familiar, includes all the way from about 30 minutes east of Disneyland in Corona, all the way through Riverside, the Coachella Valley, and out to the Arizona border. So we cover a huge territory. And we provide kids who've been removed from their homes due to abuse or neglect with specially trained volunteer advocates who are appointed by judges to get to know the child, and then also to share information about the child's needs so that the judge and other professionals can make decisions in the child's best interest. So my current role is one where I advocate, but I also lead others and run a nonprofit program. So it's kind of a multifaceted role, and I get to wear lots of different hats. But it's been a great way to apply my more traditional years of a legal practice to something a little less traditional, but still hopefully very, very impactful, and an important way to advocate for kids who need us. And there are so few of you. I'm wondering if you would be comfortable maybe sharing with Jon Carlos and I a little bit about your interests in the legal field, and maybe what sort of prompted you to join the call today. And then that way we can sort of make sure the conversation is tailored and goes in a direction maybe that is the most useful to you. This is your time, so we want to make sure that you get something out of the time you spend with us. Anyone want to go first?
You want to go with the person whoever's to your left, Jessica?
You're to my left.
Oh. Who's to my left?
To your left, there's no one. Okay. How about Raylan? I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'll start with you since I'm going to go through this, and Belinda's never going to get anyone who's anywhere near where she wants them to be.
No worries. Yeah, I don't know. I've always been interested in law and just like the legal aspect of society. So my major is sociology, and I'm concentrating in law and society. I do want to be a defense attorney, but I've also kind of recently been thinking about the idea of working like social services and like that aspect of law. So I'm just kind of like still opening everything up and figuring out exactly what I want to do. But I still have like a long road, so.
Yeah, thanks for sharing.
And Raylene, I'm sorry, are you a first-year student, or are you transferring in, or?
Yeah, I'm transferring from Miracosta College, so I'm coming from community college. It's gonna be my first year.
Awesome. Would you like to call on somebody to follow you?
I don't know. Whoever wants to go next. I don't want to put anyone on the spot.
So I'm Carlos. I'm a transfer student into Warren College, coming from San Diego City College. And I don't know what specifically I want to do. I'm kind of interested in teaching, but the law has kind of always been there. And it's just, I'm kind of being pulled in so many different directions right now. I'm not sure where I want to go. So, but I'm leaning that direction, trying to find out more if it's going to be in alignment with what I want to do.
Great. And Victoria, are you here just for the fun of it, or are you interested in law as well, or both?
So what's kind of ironic is I actually am interested in law too, but I was just like assigned to this group to like kind of help Belinda host the meeting, but I am interested in a career in law. I do want to become a lawyer, but I'm not sure which law I want to practice yet. I've interned for an employment law firm before, and that seemed like, I don't know, I'm still looking into different fields in it, but yeah.
Cool. And then is it Ariadna?
Yeah, it's Ariadna. I'm transferring from City College, and at first I wanted to like go into like health and society, but with like our political climate, I just thought it was very important to learn about law, especially since I'm not very like informed with it. I don't know what I want to do with it yet. I do want to become like a professor, but I also want to be a lawyer, so it's like, oh, I don't know.
You can do both if you're Jessica Muñoz, right, Jessica?
Oh, nice.
Ask me in a month. I'm starting an adjunct position in a month for the first time, so I can't quite say I'm doing both yet right now, but I guess I will be in a month. So yeah.
And it's a pretty common practice if you can get the opportunity to practice law, but also to teach either as full-time or adjunct as a professor. It's a calling that a lot of folks are able to do. Ooh, it looks like there's a ceiling fan that's going to join us too. Oh, hello, person. Hi. Hi. Well, hi, is it Rahel?
Yeah.
Hi.
I'm on my phone, that's why. Sorry.
No problem.
No worries. We're a pretty cozy group here, so we're just taking a minute to introduce ourselves to each other and maybe share a little bit about your interest in law. Would you mind sharing with us?
Oh, okay, sure. So my name is Rahel Chuwaka. I'm a first year at UCSD, obviously, and I want to go to law school after college because I'm interested in doing civil rights law or international law. I'm not sure yet, but I just want to like get more information on what it's about, like, and what like day-to-day stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, as you heard, both Jessica and I are attorneys, and we've both had the opportunity to work at UCSD, and I'm still working at UCSD. But it's interesting because I think it's fair to say, Jessica, that we've had slightly different paths in terms of how we got there, sort of what led us into the legal profession and to where we are now. So I would suggest that the good news is, number one, you don't have to know what you want to do. And the law touches everything. And so you can be interested in any particular thing, and there's probably a legal component to it. So you don't have to decide now if you're gonna, focus on some particular area of law. And even if you think that you do, you never know. It's interesting where it can take you. And law school does not require a major. It's, of course, separate and apart from your undergraduate experience. typically the 3 years that it takes you if you're able to do it full time, or 4 years if you do it part time. It's through the process maybe that you learn what you're most interested in, but you don't have to decide that now. And number two, like, there's no one way to do it. There are many different paths to get you there and through there, and you might even change your focus, your discipline after law school, and it might even develop once you're practicing as an attorney. That was certainly the case for me. So yeah, having said that, I don't know, Jessica, I don't want to put you on the spot. I'm happy to just keep just blathering on, but do you want to talk about your experience, or would you like me to do that?
Yeah, I think what might be helpful is if we both share, because I think Jon Carlos and I both had really different roads to law school, and just sort of share with you a little bit what the experience was like for us, and maybe give you some insight the best we can into our decision making along the way, and then maybe spend some time answering the questions that you have as you're considering the law and other areas that you are interested in. So for me, I went with no break from undergrad to law school, and I know that Jon Carlos did not do that, so I'll let him speak to that. But I went straight through. For me, that was the right thing to do. I can certainly understand why for others a break in between might be a good thing. I was a first-generation college student. I have no lawyers in my family. As my mom would joke, we have people who need lawyers in our family, but we don't have any lawyers in our family. And so I kind of knew that I wanted to help people, and that I thought because I was a pretty decent writer and was comfortable speaking to people and liked to read and liked to think analytically, that being a lawyer would be a path to go down. And so I was thinking about it from the point of view of what I believed my strengths to be and how I could match those up with a profession, and hopefully a profession where I could be of service to others. That part was really important to me. And starting law school, I always say I was one of the lucky ones, because when I started law school, I knew with some certainty that I wanted to do public interest work. And so I knew that that would probably mean working in the government or working for a nonprofit organization, which is actually, as it turns out, where I've spent most of my career. And I wanted to do something with children and families. And I say I was lucky to know that in part from a motivational standpoint, right? It's always helpful when you're going to do something hard to know why you're doing it, and law school's hard. So having an understanding of why I was there, I feel like helped me stay motivated. But from a practical perspective, it was helpful because I could make some realistic choices about how I wanted to go about pursuing my legal education, so that I would be well positioned to do the work that I wanted to do after I graduated. And so that included things like what types of internships or volunteer opportunities I might consider, but it also included really practical things like applying for scholarships. And I'll share with you, not because I like sharing this, but because I think you need to know, I went to law school on a full ride scholarship. And I share that with you, even though it sort of feels awkward and a little braggadocious to say that, because I want you to know that that type of funding is out there. So my tuition was completely paid for. I had to pay books, some weird student health fee that was like $30 a semester. And I also went to law school in the Midwest in Omaha, where it is incredibly cheap to live. So while I did have some living expenses, I was able to keep a pretty solid handle on those two. And thinking about it from the standpoint of wanting to be really practical, that if I wanted to do that type of work, the salaries available to me might not be what they would if I had gone to a very large firm that represents huge corporations, for example. And I didn't want to be in a situation where I had so much debt that it then became not viable financially to do the type of work that I wanted to do. And so having kind of that sense of what type of work I wanted to do, what type of lifestyle that might afford me, helped me make some really practical decisions and still end up at a great school and had a great experience that was supportive of the type of career that I wanted to have. And then I kind of just let that leave me. So I knew pretty early on that I was interested in working with kids and young people. When I graduated, the economy wasn't in a terrible place, but it wasn't in a great place. A lot of government agencies weren't hiring. And so I needed to think a little more broadly about the type of work that might help me start my career, which is how I started at Student Legal Services. And I didn't even know, to Jon Carlos's point, when I was in law school, that working at Student Legal Services at a university was something you could do. But for me, it was great because I was helping young people, which was my passion, remove barriers that might have interfered with their continued educational success. And so I found it really gratifying. And I always smile because property was my least favorite class in law school. I thought, I'm never going to do anything with this. This is not useful to me at all, but I'll sit here because it's on the bar exam. And when I worked with Jon Carlos, about 25% of the work that we did was landlord-tenant law, which is not what I thought I was passionate about. And is a topic intellectually, I wouldn't say is what I'm passionate about, but I was really passionate about the clients that I was helping and helping them remove those barriers. And so I think that illustrates the point that Jon Carlos is trying to make, is that sort of as you get out there and start exploring not only what topics you're in because you gravitate to them intellectually, but also what populations you might be interested in serving, that's going to start to drive and guide the work that you do. Eventually, I had a chance to represent parents and children in cases where CPS was involved, and I did that in LA County and San Diego County. And that was a very different experience because I was going to court every day and representing a very, very large caseload of clients. And that was wonderful in an entirely different way. And as I look back now, about 15 years out of law school, which is really frightening to say and to think about, I see that even though the work that I have done isn't necessarily, the path wasn't stair-step, so it wasn't like one job automatically built on the next job, automatically built on the next job. I don't think I could do the work I do now if I hadn't have had all the other experiences I've had. And so I think that's one of the things about law that's really cool, is it can be interdisciplinary if you want it to be. And so as I hear you sharing that you have interest in education and you have interest in social services and civil rights and health, there's a place for all of that. And we need lawyers who care about all of those things. And we need lawyers who care enough about learning about those things in addition to the law so that they can advocate for them. So I think that's a really exciting opportunity that a legal career affords that might be perhaps more difficult to find on other career paths. Jon Carlos?
Yeah, so Jessica is the consummate professional and had a plan. I, on the other hand, had no idea what I was doing, and I want to commend you seriously, each of you, for already engaging in your interests in a way that I certainly didn't. I didn't know what law school was or anything about it either, and I don't even know when I decided that law school was going to be it for me. But I was, as an undergraduate, I was a psychology major. And I think I thought I was going to do psychology, maybe be a professor, which all of my family, my parents were in education, and my whole family is in education. And so in undergraduate, I thought, okay, I'm going to be a psychology major and maybe I'll be a professor someday and I'll profess about psychological things. And one day I took a class on legal studies in undergrad, and it was really challenging and interesting in a way that I just hadn't quite experienced yet. And that certainly changed everything for me. And I started looking into doing some sort of joint degree program in psychology and law. And so that, as I graduated from undergrad, not really knowing exactly what that looked like, but having some sort of vague notion, I think that was my plan, was to get a joint JD, so a law degree, and a PhD in psychology, which ironically, the biggest program at the time was at the University of Nebraska in Lincoln. So oh, we could have both been in Nebraska, but no, it didn't turn out that way. I took a couple of years off between undergraduate and law school, and that absolutely was important for me. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up. I still don't know, but that's a whole other thing. And so I actually, I took a couple of years off. I moved to Guanajuato, Mexico to teach English. And I thought I would just be there for a little while, and that turned into 2 years, and 2 of the best years of my life. And I only really came back because I ran out of money. But by the time that I had, finished, my 2 years there, I decided, okay, the psychology thing, I'm not sure. But sure, law. And one of the traps, but one of the really good things about law is that, and law school particularly, is that, again, you don't have to have a particular major before going into law school. You just have to take the LSAT, the law school admission test, and, maybe get a couple letters of recommendation, write a personal statement, and that's it. Your fellow CASP members who are interested in being doctors or medical professionals, there's kind of there's more of a path there. But for law school, you just have to take the LSAT. And in fact, nowadays, you don't even have to do that for certain schools. My alma mater, the University of Arizona, they don't actually require the LSAT anymore. And I think some other schools are considering that too. But in any event, after my time was up, I thought, okay, well, I'm just going to go to law school, I'll take the easy way out. And hey, I'm living in Mexico. I love it here. I'm interested in international law, mostly because I'm interested in law and I'm living internationally. In other words, I had absolutely no idea what international law was, but I thought, well, this is something to explore. So I went to law school, kind of, I think, with that notion that I would do some sort of international law. And then I actually learned what it was in law school. And by the time I graduated, I might very well have been even more confused about what I was planning to do. But and in fact, when I graduated, it wasn't even at that point that I was planning on becoming a lawyer. I'd gone through law school and still wasn't sure that I was going to become a lawyer. And you'll actually be surprised once you are all successful, have successful careers, and once you finish law school, that a lot of people who go to law school actually don't practice law in the sort of traditional way that you might think of. So in any event, after having graduated, I thought, okay, well, I might as well take the bar exam. So that's the licensing exam in order to practice law. That is, state by state. And I'm from California, and I came back to California after I finished with school. So I took the California bar exam, and that's fun. It's in our day, right, Jessica? It was
Yep.
three days long.
Yeah.
3 days long is a 3-day test. 6 hours per day, 18 hours of writing. It's a bit intense. Nowadays, it's only 2 days. So how hard can it be, right? It's just as hard, as I understand it, but in any case, it's not quite as long. And I actually took the bar exam in REMAC, the gym at the university at UCSD. So awesome memories. In any event, I took the bar exam, and I still didn't know what kind of area of law I wanted to do. And so I started asking everybody I knew, hey, do you know any lawyers that I can take out to lunch and ask them what they're doing and if they're hiring people? And by the way, that's a good industry trick. Do your best to network with attorneys and say, hey, can I take you to coffee? And just sort of learn more about what your day-to-day life is, because I'm, maybe interested in it. And the trick is, if you say, hey, I'll take you to coffee, they'll pay for it. Because they'll think, oh, well, you're a student, you probably don't have lots of money. I'll buy the coffee. So that's the trick. Invite them to coffee and they'll pay for it. But honestly, I think that it's really important as you think about this career to really sort of get an understanding as to what the day-to-day looks like. What you see on TV and what you read about can be very, very different from the actual practice. I worked at a couple different law firms and before I started, or after I took the bar exam. And my first job, the only reason why I got the job was because I spoke Spanish, and my law firm basically catered to clients from Mexico and other parts of Latin America, and as well as folks here in the United States. And so that's obviously a really good skill to have as well. And in terms of what I did, I did actually, in fact, start with some international law. I was doing cross-border litigation. I was writing employment contracts, but I was also, and by the way, the law sort of breaks up into civil law and criminal law. That's very general, but I did all sorts of types of civil law. So that's people suing each other, or maybe it's administrative law, or maybe it's, for example, what Jessica does, it's less related to criminal, which is where, the state will prosecute somebody. It's rather different offices or individuals maybe suing each other. In any event, I did all types of civil law. So one day I'd be in bankruptcy court, and one day I'd be doing a real property dispute. And then, another day family law and construction defect law. Don't do that. That's my other piece of advice. I try to, I don't want to, influence you too much in terms of what, but that's definitely not one area of law that you want to find yourself in, because I did it for a while and it's terribly. But ask Jessica. I'd love to talk about concrete. In any event, I don't. But in any event, I did sort of everything other than criminal law. And then I found out about the job at Student Legal Services at UCSD, and I got all excited about it. So yeah, I started in 2008, and I was just lucky enough that Jessica was there at the time, and she taught me pretty much everything I know when it comes to working at Student Legal Services. And I've been there ever since. And so yeah, my job now is to help students with legal issues or questions or problems. And so my current position, Student Legal Services, we do counseling sessions, but we also have this wonderful program called Discover the Law. It's actually a series of workshops on different areas of law. And you are looking at the creator of Discover the Law. No, not me, Jessica, who started the program. We used to actually do help people prepare tax returns, and Jessica was also responsible for that. It was a horrible thing. Don't ask me to do your tax return. I can barely count. That's why I went to law school, so I wouldn't do that. Anyways, we replaced that program with the Discover the Law program, which is actually a series of workshops on different areas of law. We bring in experts like Jessica and immigration attorneys and patent lawyers and folks from different law schools to talk about what they do and to talk about different areas of law. And so if it's something that, if you are in fact interested in it, you should absolutely check it out. It's totally free. We do it in the winter quarter. And so we won't be doing it until January of 2021. But it's a great way to sort of expose yourself to the different areas of law. And you'll see our faces probably on Zoom if I had to guess correctly. But in any event, that's another way that you can sort of learn more about law and careers in the profession. So I think that's probably enough of me just rambling on about different things. So is now a good time for folks who might have questions to?
Yeah, definitely. We have until 2:45, right? Yeah. Okay. So what questions do you have for us? What were you hoping to learn or to hear about in the time that we had together?
Ooh, thanks for that, Belinda.
So I had a question, and I think maybe Jessica, since you went directly from undergrad to law school, what did the timeline look like? Like when you decided you wanted to go to law school, you know, and to take exams and whatever else, like what did that look like for you?
Yeah, so I took the LSAT the summer before the fall of my last year. So they used to offer the LSAT, I think in like March, June, and October or something like that. And I don't know, Jon Carlos may know. I'm 99% sure I took it in June. And then I applied that fall. So I applied sort of August through October. And things are a lot more automated now. At the time, you would submit in paper form sort of a basic application to the law school admission service, and then every single law school had a supplemental paper application, and then sometimes there was a third application if you were applying for scholarships. Now I think there's everything of course is online and a lot of things are streamlined, but what I would really encourage you to do is to really double check, particularly if you are interested in scholarships, that you're double checking with the admissions office to make sure if there's a supplemental application or supplemental materials that you need to submit to be considered. Because for me, that was really important. I wanted to make sure that I was making myself available for those opportunities. And for the most part, I'm trying to remember, almost every school for which I received a scholarship let me know that at the time I was admitted. So it came in my application packet. I think maybe there was only one or two where the letter came a couple weeks after, but that was really helpful because as I started to go visit law schools, and I went in person sort of in the winter time to visit different places, I had an idea of whether or not that was a school that was going to be able to provide financial assistance or not, and was able to sort of consider that in the plus column as I was out and about visiting schools.
If I can add too, I mean, I think it's, as you're thinking about, you know, maybe law school and you'll hear, oh my gosh, it's so expensive. And keep in mind that you aren't going to know how expensive it's going to be until you actually apply, until you actually get in, and until you find out what sort of financial aid package that the school is going to be able to offer you. And I'm sure it's the case with Jessica, but I certainly picked my law school based upon you know, financial aid and my ability to pay for school. So don't think that you know, don't let that dissuade you. That people will say, yes, it's so expensive, and it absolutely can be. But keep in mind too that you're not going to really know how expensive it's going to be until you apply, and until the individual schools get back to you and say, okay, here's how much we can offer you to come to our school. So that's so don't like, yeah, I mean, I know, I mean, it's a pretty common question that I get is, geez, is it worth it? Well, yeah, it may very well be. And I've also, you know, I mean, there have been attorneys certainly who've worked in the office who've paid, you know, full tuition and fees. In other words, they didn't necessarily get any financial aid benefits from their schools. But still, again, it's just something that you get to, you can think about once it's actually sitting in front of you. So.
I definitely recommend taking an LSAT prep class if you are going to apply to schools that require the LSAT for a couple of reasons. So for me personally, I'm not a great test taker, which is actually one of the things that I found really difficult about law school, because unlike undergrad where you're doing lots of different projects and submitting lots of different assignments and your grades are based on those, in law school, at least for the first year and some of your later courses, it all comes down to your final exam. So I think an LSAT prep class is really important. Also, I think it's just sort of true from a practical perspective that you're going to be studying for your LSAT while you're taking classes and while you're studying for your finals and while you're trying to keep up with your regular coursework. And even though there might be a cost associated with it, having an LSAT prep class that forces you to carve out a particular amount of time and helps you pace your studying is really valuable, even if you're a really organized person. I mean, I think I have pretty good time management skills, but I still really valued having sort of help carving out that time and showing me what a reasonable sort of study plan for that looked like. And I think it just gave me a little bit more confidence than I would have had going into the exam.
I totally second that. I took a prep course as well, and it totally changed my scores. It totally raised my score, and I was able to get a scholarship because of that. So that's another.
And I got one in spite of it. So there's hope for everyone. My scores were okay, but they were nothing to write home about. My scholarship was based on grades and community service mostly.
Mm-hmm.
So there's room for all of us at the table. You just got to find the right seat, right?
Yes, absolutely. It's not inexpensive to take an LSAT prep course, although UCSD Extension actually offers free prep courses now. It's really important to sort of create the condition of the LSAT. And by the way, maybe we should, I don't know if you've even looked at any LSAT questions, but it's not a knowledge test. It's a test about reading comprehension and about basically critical thinking. So you literally do not have to know anything about anything, but if you can, but you have to learn how to take the test, and that's what the prep course is all about. So yeah, I would absolutely suggest that if you can find the time and you can find the money, it's absolutely worth taking a prep course. I guess the other thing I'll say, oh my gosh, Rahel, you had a question, and it was going to be a good one. So please go ahead.
I just had a question, like, if you could elaborate, both of you guys, on if taking a break after undergrad is to like go into an internship, get job experience so that your like resume looks better. Would you recommend that more, like especially like now during this time where it's like very competitive?
I've actually, obviously my as Jessica said, she went straight through, and for me, I did take a couple years off. I think you go to law school when you're ready to go to law school. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that could be immediately afterwards. I have heard and I wasn't ready, so but I've actually heard from folks from the law schools in town that they actually do like it when folks have experience outside of their undergraduate study. They're not necessarily encouraging folks to actively take a year off, but I think they do like the sort of diversity of experience in terms of the application.
For me, I was glad that I didn't, but I think it's a really personal thing. And the thing to keep in mind is Jon Carlos and I only know our own experience, right? And so it worked out for me to do it the way I did it, and it worked out for him to do it the way that he did it. But I think his point about having some sort of experience, an experience can look like a lot of things. It can look like a traditional job. It can look like an internship. It can look like community service. It can look like serving as a TA or leadership roles. I think having some sort of experience that will, one, help inform perhaps the trajectory that you want your legal career to go, and two, put in context the things that you're learning so that you can take the theoretical concepts that you're learning and have the skill set to apply them to something practical. I think that's good. I mean, my law school class ranged in age from me, who was the youngest, to be honest, to somebody who was in his 60s, who had practiced as a physician for 30 years and was now going the road of leading an insurance company and wanted the law background to be able to support the work that he was doing. So when you get there are going to be all kinds of people who are there for lots of different reasons and are at all sorts of stages in their life. So I think it's more important to do what's best for you than to try to second guess what you think is what's best for the school that you might apply for.
And I think to that end, I mean, you don't need to craft your undergraduate experience for purposes of, applying to law school. If you like your major and maybe it's not specifically pre-law, don't worry about it. Do what you love. Certainly in my experience, I'm not usually very good at things that I don't really care about. And if it's something that you have a passion for, then do it. So if you're a political science major, great, but you don't have to be to go to law school. Again, they really are sort of looking for diversity of experience. And yeah, I agree that there isn't one way to do it right. I will say also that law schools don't, in my experience, and from what I understand from folks I've heard from, they don't necessarily require that you have pre-law internship experience, for example. It's great. It can't hurt you so long as it doesn't affect your grades or your LSAT performance. But I hope that you don't feel like any pressure to work at a law firm before you go to law school, or that sort of a thing. Sure, they want to know if you're interested in law, but there's no specific way that you need to sort of demonstrate that, I guess I'd say.
I just had a quick question. If there was I know you mentioned the Discover the Law program and LSAT prep classes, but is there any other I guess resources that we could attend, maybe a mock trial or something for UCSD specifically to kind of expand our interests?
Yeah, there's actually a mock trial student organization at UCSD. There's a pre-law society at UCSD. There's which is also a student organization. There's one pre-law Greek organization. I don't know if it's technically a fraternity or sorority or has a particular label, but it's geared towards folks who are interested in law. And one really awesome experience that I always like to steer folks to if they're interested is Justice Corps, which is basically an opportunity that actually places you in courts, and you can get a stipend if you do, I think it's 500 hours in an academic year, to actually work in a court to help folks who are representing themselves, that sort of a thing. So that's something I always try to steer folks towards. Belinda, you're just on top of it. Yes. Any other questions? Are you so inspired to go to law school now? Okay, just smiles.
Anything you were hoping we would talk about that we haven't before we finish up?
I think I got overall